tuning in to the online broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Good evening, everyone. If you are tuning into AfterBuzzTV.com, you have come to the right place. This is the after show for The Amazing Race Season 25, Episode 10, Smells Like Dirty Tube Socks. I'm your host, James Wallington, and we are down a J from the Triple J tonight. But to help me hold down the fort, I have with me...
Hey, everybody. My name is Justin Nichols. I know some people are probably thinking, oh, Justin's gone again. No, it's not me this week, James. I am here, glad to be here, but sadly, Jessica is up in Canada.
Not here. Yeah, she's traveling, that girl.
Lucky girl. She's always so busy.
I know, which is funny because I was rewatching our after shows earlier today because I was trying to catch us up on our fantasy points, and there was one episode, I believe it was the one I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, and you had missed one already, I had missed one, and... one of our YouTube followers, I think it was Soul Brother, he jumped to Jessica's team because you weren't there anymore.
I know.
And Jessica goes, well, it's because I'm always here. Well, now she's not.
Look who's not here, everybody. But I know she's here in spirit, but we're still here. We're excited about this episode. Here. So thank you all for listening and watching this week.
So I hope you're enjoying your time in Canada, Jessica. But Justin and I are going to dive right into Manila.
Yeah.
We're going to go to the Philippines.
I wish we were diving right into Manila.
I know.
Like
well,
in
actually,
real
there's
life.
A typhoon in the Philippines.
Okay, just kidding.
Now.
Next week, I would love to dive into Manila.
Maybe after the typhoon dies down.
Whoops.
So the teams are starting off in Singapore, which they left off in episode 9. We have Adam and Bethany, and first they are leaving with quite a bit of a lead because they had the fast forward from the last leg. They left at 2:01 p.m. Then we have Brooke and Robbie, our wrestlers, leaving at 3:35 p.m. Misty and Jim leaving at 3:48 p.m. And then in last place, Amy and Maya at 4:27 p.m. And now, since we're getting closer to the end of this season of the race, I'm paying very close attention to what the editors are deciding to show us at the beginning of every leg. Because we've kind of seen in the episodes before they travel on to their next destination, we get kind of a little bit of B-roll or some interview footage of the teams talking about what they did on the last leg or what they see themselves doing in the future. So I kind of wrote some notes down.
Okay.
Hopefully we can maybe pick up on some hints. But the surfers, you know, diving into this leg, talk about how they've had a few close calls on the race so far, but they've also had some pretty great victories. And then Adam very boldly says that they deserve to be in the final 3. Do you agree with his comment?
You know what? I really do. If not even because I just feel like they have kept it together relationship-wise. They have avoided some of the bickering that other teams have. They keep a good attitude. They work really hard. They do the challenges well. I don't necessarily want to see them get first, but I do think that they would be a good team for the top 3.
I would agree with you. At first I was kind of like, ew, you deserve to be in the final 3. I think anyone left deserves to be in the final 3.
I think he worded it weird, but I would not be upset if they were in the top 3.
No, I totally agree because I think that they've put up a great fight and they've had a pretty fun journey and made the most of their experience. We also have the wrestlers who Brooke made it very clear that they didn't think that they'd get this far on the race because they're directionally challenged and not necessarily the smartest. I think I would have to agree with Brooke. I don't think I expected them to get to this far in the race.
No, I definitely did not. They are the opposite of Adam and Bethany as far as their attitude and how you run the race. They are the first to like almost give up or whine. That being said, though, I think they are also really good TV personalities. I mean, remember, they're professional wrestlers, which are professional entertainers.
Which they have made that very clear every episode that they are. It's kind of like bringing up how amazing Bethany is every episode.
But I also think that they also know what it means to be a character on television. Absolutely. And I think a little bit what they're starting to really try to play up this like, well, this dumb wrestler, we've been knocked in the head too many times. To make it to the top 4 teams, you're smarter than you look. You know, like they've done something right if they've gotten where they're at.
I completely agree. I'm like, give yourself maybe a little bit more credit because you are in the top 4. But then we have the dentists, Jim and Misty, who have, well, Jim said we've made a few mistakes, especially in the last leg, how they followed another team, which kind of hurt them in the long run. but they are going to end the race in victories. And I do think that Jim and Misty have all the potential in the world based on their track record this season with their placements. They do have what it takes to ultimately win the entire show. Would you agree?
Yeah, they are the Jason and Amy from 2 seasons ago. I mean, they have run this race consistently, very, very strong. Every time they fall behind, they get right back forward. Every time they're forward, they fall a little bit. If they don't get first, they're going to be maybe second, man. They're going to do very, very well.
Agreed. Then we have our scientists, Amy and Maya, who this is when I start to pick up on, a little bit of editing tricks. Going back to a lot of our YouTube followers who've commented and said that they see a lot of similarities in their edit, their story about how they kind of are similar to the Beekman boys, who won their season, and they were kind of like the underdogs. And Maya, admits, like, we are the underdogs. We're kind of the peewees of the group, but they've held their own because they're academically strong.
Yep.
But I'm also like, you also are physically strong because you're still holding it up there in the top 4 with 3 of the strongest teams. So you can give them a little bit more credit.
Yeah. And maybe it's the editing, James, and I'm going to sound like the worst hypocrite for Team Justin. Because let me tell you, I am waving their flag, James. I am wanting them to win. I want my Team Justin to be a fantasy league success.
Yes.
Here's the thing, though. If you would have told me of the teams I would have had on my roster for this fantasy league, that Amy and Maya were going to be the ones in the top 4, I'd have been like, get out of here. They have shocked me. Maybe it's the editing, but like, they are strong, they are smart, but I don't feel like they're always the smartest or always the strongest. They've kind of just hung in there. And I don't know. Do you think they can hang in there all the way to the first?
Well, I would agree with you about your roster. I would assume Kim
bikers,
to be in the top 4 over Amy and Maya. But I just, if they're ultimately going to be in the top 3 or let alone win the entire season, I just wish we would have seen a little bit more development in their character on the show from the very beginning. Because they kind of were lost along the wayside at some point, and you were like, who are Amy and Maya? Like, why are they here? What's their relationship?
And what's odd is, like, but I feel like what they normally do for the underdog is they let them be the underdog for like the first half, but then you really get to know them the second half. It's just really strange that I still feel like a little bit they don't get as much airtime as the other racers.
I agree.
We're in the final couple legs, and I'm like, I don't know as much about them, or I don't get their personalities as much.
Well, we definitely, I feel like in this episode in particular, maybe it's because we are close to the end of the season, we did see a little bit more fight in them as far as like, we are on the amazing race, like we want to win, or we have what it takes. And just I appreciate Maya's enthusiasm because I feel she was such a light in this episode because she was so, I don't know, just loved in every single second of the race, which is, for me as a fan, I appreciate.
You want to see.
Yeah. So moving forward, we see the teams going about the travel agent, that debate of, do we go to a travel agent? Do we go to the airport? In this case, we see a lot of different strategies play out, but it paid off for the surfers, the scientists, and the wrestlers because they were on the earlier flight getting into Manila over the dentists who were ultimately on the flight number 2.
And I kind of say, one, I'm shocked that the dentist once again got screwed over by a flight. And I loved the soundbite that the editors used when Jim started this episode being like, we've learned our mistake about flights. We are going to make sure that we only do the right flight. Well, you screwed up again there, buddy.
Yes.
But here's the thing that was brilliant, though. Why don't they do this every single leg? I don't know. I like the scientists. They combined going to the airport and the travel agent first. They called the travel agency on the way to the airport.
Brilliant.
Dude, why don't every single team does this every leg? I don't know.
Which goes back to Amy and Maya saying that they're
the smartest racers,
academically strong, which, sometimes in the amazing race, that's really all you need.
Yeah, work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. I like that philosophy, Justin. So we have our teams traveling to Manila, and once they, land in the country of the Philippines, they are told to make their way to Baclaran Church, where ultimately it turns out to be an equalizer, which I loved Jim saying under his breath. He goes, it's an equalizer. I knew it. Because they are set, the vendor where they were going to get their next clue from the flower shop, or the flower vendor, said that they were able to pick up their next clue at 6:30 a.m. the next morning. How would you be able to handle maybe sleeping in the public of a foreign country, on the streets, on a bench? Do you think that would be comfortable?
No, I mean, I wouldn't handle it well at all. And I think it's one of those things, too, where at the start of the race, that's kind of like exciting. You're like, oh, on the Amazing Race, we're gonna sleep in this park bench. Like, yeah, we're in the race. I think at this point, you are so tired. You are hungry, and you are tired of ants and bugs crawling on you. Just put me in a damn hotel. Come on.
Yeah.
You're so tired.
Well, I wonder why teams don't necessarily maybe pull their money together and just get a really nice hotel room for the night.
And then they all just bunk up together.
Party. Yeah, I'm sure that would be great television. I'm sure the producers would love that. But no, we see them sleeping on the streets of the Philippines.
Yeah.
So once it's 6:30 a.m. the next day, they were able to receive their next clue, which informed the teams that they were to head by jeepney, which is like a local bus, jeep, whatever, form of transportation, to the Rosario Municipal Plaza and search for Salinas specials for their next clue. Yeah. I loved this whole segment with the jeepney.
I did too.
The people that really stuck out to me the most on their little journey with the jeepney were Jim and Misty and Amy and Maya.
Yep.
So Jim and Misty in particular was more so the fact that being in this country was really humbling for them, being parents and seeing the children of the Philippines just kind of wandering the streets, let alone sitting there, having the potential to be hit by a car.
And some of them were naked, not any clothes.
And so I can only imagine for Misty being a mom, how hard that would be on her heart, especially, just what she said, this is the community. this is it. This is their way of life. So I loved that whole segment because that to me is another part of the Amazing Race. You're not just racing for $1 million. Yeah, at the end of the day, that's amazing. But these sort of situations where you are humbled and you can kind of be brought back to reality and be like, wow, I take so much for granted. Those are just as rewarding as $1 million would be.
But then what made it even more interesting was, like you were going to say, then you went completely opposite to the scientists.
Yes.
And what's funny is, I don't remember exactly when it was, but earlier on in the season, if you remember, Jim was annoyed at the scientists because they were just this is amazing. I think it was maybe like the leather challenge or something like that. So as poor Misty is crying her tears, the scientists think this is just the greatest thing in the world to see their culture and to smell the smells of the city, aka like feces. And it was just they were just excited.
They were loving it.
They were loving it.
Because they kept saying, this is the morning commute for the locals here. And so to be a part of that and kind of really immerse yourself into the culture is another element of what makes the Amazing Race what it is for the people that actually get to experience it. So I loved that because it kind of takes a break from the competition and really see the country that they're traveling in. But then going to the other spectrum, now we have Brooke and Robbie. Obviously Brooke being so theatrical about how horrible the Philippines smells. No surprise from there. No surprise at all.
She was literally, if you did not see the episode, she was literally in the back of this tiny little tin can, and she was just trying to not throw up on the bus.
She was like, smells of the Philippines. Oh, what is that? Oh God, covering her nose.
But she kept doing that. But what she also didn't understand is I'm sure some of the people around them from the Philippines spoke English, and it could be insulting to these people. She needs to be careful.
I would definitely agree. It's nice to be a little bit more respectful of the country you're in.
Maybe a little bit, but I still love you.
So the teams make their way to the Salinas special, where they receive their next clue, which is the detour for this leg of the race, which their two choices are catch or coach. In catch, we find out that teams have to wade into the Manila Bay to a pump boat, and they had to fill up a bucket with fish and then transport that back to shore in order to fill up 3 buckets with fish. Once they fill up their buckets, they would receive their next clue. In coach, we have teams who had to properly attach a sidecar onto a motorcycle, making sure to match the motorcycle to their provided sidecar. If the mechanic was pleased with their work, they would receive their next clue. To me, both of these sound equally as challenging. I don't know which one I would have chosen. Which one would you have picked?
Well, this is a tough one where I know what I would have chosen and I would have been wrong. So anything with water, I'm in. I spent a lot of time in the water. I'm a competent swimmer. I would have seen that. I've done a lot of fishing. I'm not afraid to put my hands on fish or hook a fish. All that I'm good with. So I would have done that for sure. But then seeing how much strength it took, and I'm not strong at all. For those of you that are watching, you see this. So I'm just saying that he did it in 4 trips, I believe, and it would have taken me 10. Once there'd been like two little sardines in that bucket, I've been like, oh, James, I'm too tired. Gotta go back.
And they didn't only have the problem of the strength part. It was also the weather. Like the storm clouds were coming in, so
the
like
waves
obviously
were
the
really
waves
intense.
were really rocky. So yeah, that would obviously cause a lot more strain on your physicality in that moment. So I agree. I think Catch would have probably been the poor choice. I would have chosen Coach only because I don't want to get in the water.
I'm just the
I don't know
opposite.
what's in it. It looked dirty. I don't know. Water freaks me out sometimes.
But I liked the wrestler's strategy, though, where they know, like, if we're going to go with their stereotype, they're not the smartest, but they're the strongest. So they know any physical challenge that they can do over other teams, they want to do it, and they want to get it done, and it ended up being a really good decision for them. But the reason why I said I would have been screwed is because they got it done quickly, but we'll see later on, not that much more quick than other teams because they got caught up very quickly.
Right.
So it would have taken me 5 times as long.
Well, they may have gotten it done quickly, but no surprise again, they didn't get it done without bickering or complaining. And, you know, Robbie was so funny just to see this big dude who's a professional wrestler freaking out over slimy fish guts and putting I mean, sure, I can imagine it being a little uncomfortable because who just fishes, you know, fish out of buckets but it was just funny to see this grown man being like, oh, gross, oh my God. And then Brooke is like, oh my God, the smell, it's so gross. So that whole thing was fun to see. If there was a team that would want to see do that detour, absolutely.
I just always think about the field producers. So, you know, for those of us, you know, that know television, there's not only a camera guy with these racers, but there's probably some type of producer at some level with them too.
Right.
Think of how much bickering these producers had to hear. Because not only what you see on camera, but so much is edited out that these producers had to write down and talk about. I mean, that's a lot of bickering. a lot of bickering.
We have our other teams that did Coach, which were dentists, the surfers, and the scientists. But on the way to this detour, the scientists kind of made a rookie mistake in the Amazing Race by not reading the fine print of their clue. Which, you know, Adam and Bethany, being sweet, were like, read your clue, like out of their little, you know,
whatever that was,
that contraption,
sidecar,
which, you know, ultimately helped the scientists because that's when Maya was like, gosh, we didn't read our clue, we have to go back. So that kind of put them back a little bit in the pack for this detour. But it seems like all three teams that chose Coach, no really struggle.
Jim missed you a little bit,
but not like so bad that it, like,
there was
prevented them from completing.
No, but there was a slight flashback to when they were doing the street challenge. They were setting up that curb. Just that it was the axle that Jim Lee. You know, it's just odd because they're such a smart couple. It seems like it's always a small detail that seems to throw them off.
Which is funny, as dentists, they keep saying, like, we're good with details, and you'd think that they'd be good at that.
Yeah. They're great at teamwork. You can tell that they work together outside of the race as well. They're very, very good at that.
Right.
Small details.
Not
always.
Good.
Yeah.
But luckily for these teams, when it started to rain a little bit, they were under a
little
bit of a tarp, which was nice.
A very, very, very little tarp.
So once the teams completed their parts of the detour, their next clue had them head to the rice fields for their next clue, which I love when the Amazing Race does switchbacks, because as a huge fan of the Amazing Race, it's so fun to go back to previous seasons and see new racers try to complete the task at hand. And so for this particular Amazing Race switchback, it was seen in season 5, which, like Phil said, was one of the most iconic or biggest blow-ups you've seen between the racers Colin and Christy. So it was fun to kind of see the team step into this and dive right into the muddy rice fields.
And like I feel like mud is an understatement. Like it is like it's a swamp. I mean, let's be honest.
It's a swamp. Of course, I feel like with this particular task, being the first person there, you're kind of at a disadvantage. And I think that's why ultimately the dentist and the scientists were able to get further at the end of the day, they checked in over the two teams that were there first. But the only reason why I say that is because Robbie and Brooke, and then the surfers, Adam and Bethany, when they show up, there's so much ground to cover with their plow to try to find their next clue that when the other two teams show up, you can kind of see where the other teams have made traction and be like, all right, well, I'm going to go on this side and try to see what hasn't been touched yet. Would you agree with that?
Well, here's the thing, though, how they made it sound up, how it was set up, or here's how I took it was, so Robbie and Brooke finished their detour first, right? So they get to go the right spot first. However, it looked like there were 4 separate ponds. So I feel like it doesn't even matter which one Brooke and Robbie were in. So, but Brooke and Robbie, they kept saying they chose the largest pond. Right. So that it was like, you can't switch ponds once you choose one of them. And I'm just like, if you were the first ones, Brooke and Robbie, why didn't you choose the smallest one? I don't know. I have not seen the previous season that they did this in. Yeah. I'm just being honest. So I found
years ago.
But I found this really frustrating because, I mean, I like Brooke and Robbie, even though they're not on my team, but I like them as great personalities. And I was frustrated because I was like, this is such a crapshoot. That like your ox, who's not even following your commands anyway, just happens to stumble upon this clue in the mud.
Right. I'm glad you picked up on that, though. I think I was so busy taking notes that I didn't really pick up on that detail. Because every time I would look up at the screen,
it was like one big thing.
It would be like an aerial view of the rice field, and it looked like this huge, like a lot of ground to cover. So that's true. Yeah. They probably just made the mistake of picking the wrong rice field or muddy, whatever they're in.
It's because they're pretty. You know, not a lot of, that's what they say.
But of course, no surprise there. Robbie and Brooke bringing in the entertainment with this task because they are complaining about the smell. They're complaining about having to get dirty.
All the poop. God, those things poop a lot.
I was just going to say that ox. I thought it was so funny because when the way they cut it to the ox and it's like, it like makes that face. You're like, oh, you totally know what that ox is doing.
Yeah. But you know what, though? Like, that was the perfect ox for them. Like, we needed that to happen because it would just provide the perfect entertainment. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Good television.
Great television. Then we have the surfers show up in second, the dentist show up third, and then Amy and Maya, which I'm assuming because they were set back a little bit from not reading their clue, they were last to this particular task. But just because you might have been the first two teams there doesn't mean you're going to be the first two teams to leave. Because in this case, we have the dentist, Jim and Misty, and the scientist, Amy and Maya, be the first two to get their clues.
And it looked like the second Jim and Misty got into the water, they were just like, oh, here it is. Yeah. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
but you have to think, do you think that might have been editing because we see the other team
struggling so much? It must have been, but there was still a soundbite of the rushers being like, they got it already. So, I mean, I do think that it was fast, but it definitely looked like they stepped 1 foot in and they just stumbled upon it. And I was like,
they are Jim and Misty.
It drives me crazy. Just crazy.
But we have a foot race between these two teams, which to me is like an unlikely foot race because, you know, we have Amy, who has like an injured ankle, leg, foot, whatever happened to her. And then we have Jim and Misty, who've been a really strong team this entire race. It was fun to watch.
It was, and it was just so exciting to see the scientist who you never thought would be racing against Jim and Misty for first place of a leg. I just never expected that to happen.
Right.
And they held their own. They did a really good job.
And they were gracious losers, too, when they got to them. They were like, oh, man, we were so close to getting first, but congratulations. So Jim and Misty getting first won a trip to Vietnam. How cool is that? I would totally been all over that.
I feel like they've won so many trips. So many trips. So
it's like an amazing race all over again, but on your own terms.
Yeah.
Book them back to back. So then after that, we see Brooke and Robbie and the surfers, which also looked like a pretty close foot race based on how they edited it.
Yeah, it seemed like how they edited it where they both found their clues at the exact same time in the mud. And this is one of those where I hate watching with other people because I was screaming watching the television set. Like, go, go, because I was cheering for Brooke and Robbie.
Well,
sorry, surfers.
Your cheering was just not enough.
It was not enough. Well, I mean, you guys, everyone that listens to AfterBuzz knows whoever I like means they're going to go home. I mean, that's just how it works for me.
But luckily for Brooke and Robbie, it was a non-elimination leg, which we talked about last week on our after show because the finale is not till next Friday.
Yeah.
So to have it on elimination only made sense. Only made sense at this point. But that means the wrestlers will have to face a speed bump in their next leg of the race.
Now, so far this season, the speed bumps haven't been too bad. So, I mean, like I said, even on my fantasy team, I like Brooke and Robbie, and I think that a speed bump is not an end-all for you in the Amazing Race currently. What about you?
I would agree. I think that they can totally make up time. It's not going to be anything that's going to throw them under the bus and be like, oh, we're behind the pack now. So I think they'll be able to get it in and out of there like no problem.
They're going to say that because they're so negative, but we know that you guys are still in this, and the speed bumps are normally not that tough.
So ultimately the pit stop, we have Jim and Misty in first place, Amy and Maya in second place, Adam and Bethany in third, and Brooke and Robbie in fourth. Another thing I really love about the show is when all the teams are on the mat together, because you kind of see that banter and that interaction of how intense the competition really is. Yeah. And that's when we see Amy and Maya say, we want to be the third all-female team to win in Amazing Race history. And when I heard that soundbite, that light went off in me, and I was like,
The television personality and all the work you've done on TV is paying off, James.
I feel like I am a guru when it comes to reality TV now.
And editing now.
I feel like we need to keep an eye on this.
If Amy and Maya win, well, one, obviously, because they're on my fantasy team, that'd be great. But also, I think we'll be like, James, you called it from that soundbite.
Yeah. Right.
We will see. What do you guys think? Do you think that soundbite is accurate, and maybe that's foreshadowing the future? Who do you think is going to win? Of course, keep letting us know your thoughts on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the things.
And speaking of YouTube, let's pull up our YouTube right now and see what people have been saying to us all week long.
We have been getting awesome comments. Of course, for those of you that are listening in your cars right now on a podcast, you guys can still rate, comment, subscribe on the podcast and iTunes. But for so many of you guys that are watching on YouTube, your comments are every week hilarious. Soul Brother 69, James, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
He has switched back to Team Justin. He's back. I'm so excited. Soul Brother, good to have you back. And James, he says hello.
I'm just bummed that he didn't give us the correct pronunciation of his username, because I feel like we butcher it every single week. That's the one thing that I asked on our show last week was, please tell us how to really say your name properly.
All right. Aaron Caravan, thanks for your thoughts, of course, on YouTube. This is just so many. I'm trying to get to the best of them, James. Of course, Allie on Twitter.
Yes.
What are some of the YouTube comments that you're looking at that you really like?
Another person, Sam Lane, one of our religious
Sam
followers
from England.
Yeah, he is on Team Justin as well.
Obviously.
Yep. Well, a lot of people agreed with me when I said that I felt like the fast forward might have been a little unfair because it gave an advantage to Adam and Bethany.
Well, there was actually quite a conversation on YouTube about your comments.
I had to press more replies to read the
because some
thread.
Some of our listeners at AfterBuzz think that the racers had no idea it was going to be a surfing contest, so it was completely fair. But I think just about the name of the location, in my opinion, it was obvious that there was some type of water surfing challenge.
Right. Let's see. I think that's about it. But everyone, thank you again for tuning in. I'm so excited to see Aaron Caravan's name back on.
Yeah.
He's been around quite a bit, and he said he's back. So thank you again for tuning back into our after show, Aaron Caravan. And everyone else, keep commenting, subscribing, and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. And when you guys are, clicking on the comment section, don't forget, after you write your comments, just click on the share. And with all your social media, make sure you are sharing our link, so that we can get to 10,000 viewers, so James can do something absolutely ridiculous and embarrassing.
I thought it was you, Justin.
No.
Okay, let's dive into our Allie
questions of the week.
Weekly Allie questions of the week. Allie, let's see. She said, what detour would you have done? As always, we covered that. She would have done Catch.
You and me, girl. You and me
She
both.
teared up a little bit with the jeepney moment that Jim and Misty had, which I think we all did. The U-turn, would think the dentist would be... we talked about the dentist being good at detail.
Allie, you should be hired. Like, AfterBuzz needs to have you on our panel, because you think the same things that we do.
All the time. She's like, she knows our show so well now.
She does.
Let's see. She said that she thought Brooke looked really sad before she found out that there was a non-elimination, which of course I would be sad too, thinking that I was going to go home on Amazing Race.
Although to say it, I don't know, Allie, that might have been some acting in Brooke's part. I think these racers know the race very well, and I think they probably maybe were a little stressed or worried, But I think they also knew it was going to be a non-elimination.
Yeah, you kind of have to have. Yeah, I would agree. If you're a big fan of The Amazing Race, you can kind of piece together the puzzle. Yeah, the formula. So she ultimately says that she would like the scientists to win because they said that they will be the third female team to win, which is exactly what I said. But she would also like to see the wrestlers win because she doesn't think people would expect that. And I think I would have to agree with her.
Agreed.
That would be another underdog
As long as Jim does not get now the thumb on the other hand, because he now has 5 wins, Team Jim and Misty. So no more fingers.
No more fingers. She says that the next leg looks interesting, but do you think that on next week's episode that their speed bump is going to be the one where they're playing basketball?
Ooh, great question, because of the little click. I don't know.
It could be because that was the only team we really saw in the clip playing it, but that could be maybe a trick, a little tease.
Yeah, I feel like what happens next week's are always deceiving. So
and then to transition here, she said, James, I think you should tally up the points so far and give us an update on where everyone is placing at this stage in the race. I've come up with a new drinking game for you guys. Anytime someone says I'm in a race or I'm in a race for $1 million, that's true. A lot of the teams, when they go to travel agencies or taxis, they say that.
Well, that's the only nice thing about watching the show now on Friday nights is that we're going to go out and drink anyway. So now we can just get intoxicated while watching The Amazing Race and then go out afterwards. Because if we drink every time they say I'm in a race for $1 million, we'll be hammered.
But you know what, Allie? Good news for you is I have tallied up the score. We are up to date with our fantasy league. So let's just dive right into predictions, shall we?
Let's do it.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
I mean, I don't know if the people at home can see this, but I had to really work hard.
Are you...
I worked really hard today.
I wish you all could see this that are watching this at home, but there's a thing, James, called a calculator on your phone.
I know.
And there is like all kinds of arithmetic and mathematics. James, what are you doing?
For me, it's a science. It's the way my mind
No, it's called
works.
math, and we have a calculator. It's that easy.
You dying to know what your points are, Dustin?
I am absolutely dying.
All right, so let's dive right into Jessica's points.
Okay.
Where we left off in episode 8. Episode 8 is when we had to predict first place, last place, if the express pass was going to be used, save, and which members of our team were going to do the roadblock.
Already over my head. What does she have?
So she has 48 points at that point, gained 11, brought her up to 60, and then after last week's predictions, she now has 73 points.
What?
And Jessica's very lucky to have 2 teams remaining in this race.
Yeah, Jessica, you are still in this, girl. She was way behind. So everyone listening and watching for Team Jessica, do not give up yet. You're still fighting in this.
She back in it.
Okay,
then we'll dive right into me. I still hold second place. We can't seem to get past Justin. I started off in episode 8 with 59 points. Got 9 from that episode, bringing me up after this episode to a total of 78 points.
How many points do I have, James?
Justin, at episode 8, you had a total of 64 points. After the last 2 episodes. You've gained quite a bit, but because you lost Kim and Allie, it kind of stunted your point growth a little bit. You're now at 80.
Okay, so what place am I in now?
First.
Okay, how many points do I have?
80.
And what place am I in?
First.
Okay, just want you guys all to hear that multiple times, that Team Justin still holds strong at first.
But I will say, I think for the entire time of this season and since we've started the fantasy league, this is the closest I think we've all been to each other.
It's crazy.
We're within a 10-point radius.
Yeah.
So Justin's in first with 80 points. I'm in second with 78. And Jess, she might surprise us like Amy and Maya and come up into first. She has 73 points. So we are now caught up for all you viewers at home who are following us and joining our teams.
Yeah.
Now that you know the points, whose team are you on? Are you on Team James? Are you on Team Justin? Or are you on Team Jess? It'll be interesting to see what our viewers at home think.
Well, hopefully they think the correct answer, Team Justin.
Team Jessica. I'm on Team Jessica.
What? So everyone on Team James right now, please just switch immediately to Team Justin because he's not even on his own team.
I'm abandoning ship. All right, let's go with predictions. Justin, who is getting first next week and who ultimately is not going to be in our top 3?
So here's the thing. I think that it is time for my girls to get first place. So I think they're in second right now, which is the highest position they've been in all season long. So they're going to get first place.
Okay.
I'm terrified that the wrestlers, who I love dearly and who I would love to see in the top 3, I think that this is the end for them. And I don't think it's not even going to be because of the speed bump. It's going to be like Tim and TJ. It wasn't the speed bump that held them back. They're going to choose the wrong detour or something like that.
Right. So they're going to make a mistake. That's going to ultimately cost them the final 3.
You got it.
All right. So we have Amy and Maya first for you. The wrestlers in last. Jess has yet to text me her predictions, but once she does, I will get those locked down for next week.
Now, do I gain and lose points if my predictions are right or wrong?
You don't lose points, but you will gain a point for everything that you get correct.
Oh. I want to change my first place to Jim and Misty. Okay. I'm just trying to root for...
Would you like me to put...
Yes, Jim and Misty. Fine. I was just trying to root for my girls because they're on Team Justin, but if it involves points and I want to stay in the Fantasy League top position, I need to be smart and choose Jim and Misty. I think you made a good point.
Yeah. I think that was a good change there.
Okay, what do you think?
I'm going to go ahead and say the same thing you did. Jim and Misty are going to get first place, and we're going to say goodbye to our wrestlers.
Now watch the scientists get first place.
And then
I've switched.
The surfers go home.
Exactly. Something like that.
I guarantee you right now, Jessica's going to say that the surfers are going to get first and that the scientists are going to come home.
We will see, Jamesy.
Alrighty, so that concludes our show for tonight. But Justin, where can they find you on social media?
You all can find me on social media at Justin J. Nichols. Please follow me because, tonight, thank you all for waiting a few extra hours. But when we changed it, we did make sure we put it out on social media. So make sure you follow us, and any type of cool announcement with AfterBuzz, we always put it on there.
Right. And then on Jessica's behalf, you can find her on social media on all platforms, I believe, at Jess XO. XO. Yeah.
Something like that.
And you can follow me on Twitter at James Wallington and on Instagram at Mr. James Wally. And we'll see you all next week. And we have potentially special guests coming in next week. So that's something you don't want to miss. I'll tell you that right now. You do not want to miss next week's episode.
I'm already excited.
See you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.